Hello from beautiful medieval Cairo, the modern capital of my second home, Egypt. Today we won't explore ancient tombs or temples as usual, but I'll take you to an exceptional ancient site.
Today I want to show you one of the oldest Egyptian capitals. Let's see what remained from the city of Memphis.
I've been to Cairo many times, and although this site is so close to the great Old Kingdom necropolises such as Saqqara, Dahshur and Abu Sir, I've never visited the open-air museum of Memphis. So it was my first time there, and as you'll see, it's simply amazing. We are heading 20 kilometers south to see the remains of what was once the largest city in the world. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel to be up to date with the new episodes. Let's go to Memphis! We start with the most famous object here, the 3,200-year-old statue of Ramses the Great. The limestone giant measures 13 meters from head to knees. Although it didn't survive in one piece, Ramses' face and torso are in excellent condition. We see Ramses' characteristic faint smile. The slightly lowered eyelids give the impression that the king is looking down. The face seems calm and serene. Ramses' ears were carved smaller than those of his predecessors and always pierced. These features allow us to conclude that the image was made for Ramses and wasn't a usurped statue of an earlier ruler, which happened very often. The Colossus was discovered in 1821 by the Italian Egyptologist Giovanni Caviglia, famous for the excavation of the Great Sphinx at Giza, first since Roman times a few years earlier. The Colossus of Ramses II was then half buried, lying face down in marshy ground near what was once the southern gate of the Great Temple of PTAH. Originally, the entrance to the temple through a monumental pylon was guarded by a pair of identical colossi, standing in one row with 6 slightly smaller statues. One of these was also found by Caviglia. It was restored in the 1950s and decorated Ramses Square, adjacent to the Cairo train station. Since 2006, it's been located in the entrance hall of the Grand Egyptian Museum in Giza. The praenomen, the throne name carved on the Ramses belt and bracelet, says User Mit Rahina. The justice of Ra is powerful. After several unsuccessful attempts, in 1887, with the help of pulleys and levers, the Colossus was lifted and moved to its current location. At that time, a mud brick building was erected around the statue, complete with a viewing platform. Despite its gigantic size, the workmanship is impeccable. Just look at these details. The discovery of the statue caused a sensation in Europe, and several lucrative offers were made. Fortunately, the size of the Colossus made it impossible to transport it out of Egypt. Even the British Museum in London, to which the Egyptian authorities wanted to offer the statue free of charge, decided that transport would be too expensive. So the Colossus remained in Egypt. The modern shelter we're now in was built in 1958. I must admit, it serves its purpose perfectly. You can admire the statue from different angles as well as walk around it at a higher level. Relics from various periods found in the area are displayed around the statue. Here we have the unluckily headless god Bes, beautifully carved in limestone. A fragment of a quartzite block that probably decorated one of the doors of nearby temples. We see the characteristic figure of the god Ptah, with a skull cap, wrapped like a mummy, holding his staff, which in his case is always a combination of the symbols of Jet, Ankh, and Was. The inscription shows the Serach of Ramses II, that is his Horus name, the mighty bull, beloved by Maat, as well as his throne name, which we already know. A granite offering table typical of the Middle Kingdom. All these pieces come from one of the most sacred national sanctuaries of the Egyptians, next to the solar cult center in Heliopolis, Theban Karnak, and Abydos. In fact, we owe the English name Egypt to the Temple of Ptah, all thanks to ancient authors writing in Greek, such as Manetho, the Ptolemaic historian from the 3rd century BC, who translated the Egyptian name Hutka Ptah, that is, enclosure of the Ka of Ptah, into the Greek Aegyptos, from which derives the Latin word Aegyptus. Several dozen meters away from the Colossus of Ramses the Great, there's another famous statue made of a single block of alabaster. The Sphinx probably dates back to the times of Amenhotep II, that's to the 15th century BC. However, it's not decided whose face we are looking at right now. Some researchers insist on Hatshepsut, probably due to her characteristic side profile. I personally see no resemblance to Hatshepsut or to the next candidate, Amenhotep III, but rather to his father, Thutmose IV, famous for his special relationship with the Great Sphinx of Giza, as evidenced by the so-called dream stele. One thing's for sure, the Sphinx dates back to the 18th dynasty. And of course it was signed with a cartouche by Ramses the Great. Originally, the Sphinx was located in the courtyard behind the southern gate of the temple. It measures over 8 meters in length and more than 4.5 meters in height. It's estimated to weigh at least 80 tons. It's one of the largest and best preserved alabaster statues that have survived to this day. The nearby village and the entire mound where the temple was located, Mit Rahina, comes from the ancient phrase, Road of the Sphinxes. In this land where the Nile flooded for 3 months a year, hills and mounds played a special role ensuring the safety of inhabitants beyond the flood's reach. As we know, the Egyptians believed that the creation of the universe began with the appearance of the first ancient mound, Benben, emerging from the dark cosmic waters of chaos, Nun. The Memphians identified the original mythical land with the Mount of Mit Rahina we're currently on, which was becoming an island during the floods of the Nile, and on which the temple of Ptah probably existed already in early dynastic times. According to Memphite theology, creation occurred as a result of an intelligent design, a plan, and then expressed thought of the great God. In the beginning there was the Word, and it was spoken by Ptah, the creator of all things, but also the patron of artists, architects, craftsmen, and of course, the protector of Memphis. If you want to explore the fascinating Memphite theology and the history of his cult, I recommend to you my podcast about Ptah, link in the description. Although the oldest traces of occupation and sedentary communities date back to early antiquity, 1000 years before the construction of the first pyramid, according to the Egyptian tradition repeated by Herodotus from the 5th century BC and Manetho, the city was built by Menes. The legendary Menes is commonly identified by historians with the founder of the first dynasty, Narmer, the ruler of Upper Egypt, ruling from the city of Thinis, near Abydos. It was Narmer who unified Egypt around 3150 BC, and in the north, which he conquered, he established the new capital of the empire, Memphis. It's therefore one of the oldest Egyptian cities. Most researchers agree that it served as the first capital of unified Egypt, 600 years before the Great Pyramid of Giza was built. In turn, according to the Greeks, the city was founded by the mythical ruler of Egypt, Epaphus, the son of Zeus and the mortal princess of Argos, Io. Epaphus named the city in honor of his wife, Memphis. In the light of archaeological evidence, the founding of the city by Menes, Narmer, is only a legend. Memphis is actually older. An early hieroglyphic record discovered in 2012 in a cave in Wadi Ameira, South Sinai, reports a visit to the city of Memphis by the royal bark of Ire-Hor, the ruler of the so-called Dynasty Zero, who reigned in Upper Egypt 100 years before Narmer. Memphis was therefore a large and important city in early dynastic times. Almost all of its necropolises were already in use at that time. Unfortunately, as we know, the builders of the Old Kingdom pyramids dismantled the earlier monuments in Saqqara and Giza. In front of us, a standing giant, which dates back to the 12th dynasty, around 1800 BC. It was restored by Ramses the Great. We can see his cartouches on the pedestal. It comes from the Middle Kingdom when the capital was moved to Thebes. However, Memphis remained the main cultural and religious center of the country until the invasion of the Hyksos, who conquered northern Egypt around 1650 BC. At that time, many Memphite monuments were dismantled and moved to the new capital of the Hyksos in the Nile Delta, Avaris, from which they ruled as the 15th dynasty for the next 100 years. Actually, the Greek name Memphis refers to the Egyptian name of the city from the Middle Kingdom, Men-Nefer, which is part of the name of the extensive pyramid complex of King Pepi I Merira of the 6th dynasty in southern Saqqara. This complex was called Men-Nefer Pepi. The perfection of Pepi is established. However, among several ancient names of the city, the oldest and most popular was Inebu Hedge, meaning the white walls. Despite many theories on this subject, no remains of this pre-dynastic white wall that was supposed to surround the city have ever been found. One theory is really interesting. It says that the name doesn't refer to the building, but to the characteristic landscape around Memphis. White, steep limestone cliffs surround the Nile Valley from the east. Also from the west, where the cultivated area ends with steep cliffs, begins Saqqara, the oldest desert necropolis of Memphis. In fact, the name Inebuhaj doesn't refer to just one city, but to the entire region, the nome, of which Memphis was the main center. In Lower Egypt, there were 20 nomes, during the pre-dynastic period, independent city-states. Inebuhaj was the most important primary district, marked with the number 1. It was also the southernmost nome of Lower Egypt, which, as we know, included mainly the Nile Delta. The main temple of Ptah stood here at least since the Old Kingdom. During the 18th dynasty, the sanctuary was expanded with a new temple of Ptah built by Thutmose IV and the mortuary temple of Amenhotep III. The Ramessids carried out many construction and restoration works here, as Memphis again became the capital of the empire during the 19th dynasty. Everywhere we look, we come across Ramses the Great, who significantly expanded the temple. For example, he added a hypostyle hall. The remains of its western entrance hall have survived to this day. The very scarce remains now lie behind a high wall about 400 meters to the northwest. The area is closed to visitors. No exceptions. Of course, Ramses decorated the temple pylons with his huge images. The next phase of the expansion of the sanctuary was during the late period, especially the new gates and pylons of Nectanebo I and Nectanebo II from the 4th century BC. The Ptolemies and Romans surrounded the sanctuary with a huge brick wall. There was also the Temple of Hathor and, of course, the famous Temple of the Apis bull. This is how the city was described by the Greek historian and geographer Strabo in the 1st century AD, when Memphis was under Roman rule. The city is large and populous. It ranks next to Alexandria, and like that place is inhabited by mixed races of people. There are lakes in front of the city and of the palaces, which at present are in ruins and deserted. At the distance of 40 stadia from Memphis is a brow of a hill, on which are many pyramids, the tombs of the kings. 3 of them are considerable. 2 of these are reckoned among the 7 wonders of the world. Nearby Alexandria became the political and economic center not only of northern Egypt, but of the entire Mediterranean. This marked the gradual decline of Memphis, which finally occurred in late antiquity. I described a particularly interesting religious aspect of Memphis in more detail in my podcast about the god Ptah, the goddess Sekhmet, and the sacred Apis bull. Links in the description. It's time to return to Cairo, whose beautiful medieval mosques were built among other materials from the stone blocks of the demolished Great Temple of Ptah. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy our historical adventures and want to help me continue this, please join my Patreon community. Link below the video. Please like, comment and share my video with your friends. I'd like to thank all the supporters of my channel, especially my dear patrons. Thanks to your support, I can create new content. Last but not least, don't forget to subscribe to my channel to be up to date with new episodes. See you on another ancient site.